This is another English lesson, and it also is, it's in page 1086 and 1099 and 1073, I think, and several of the English pages. And that is this topic of active versus passive voice. In page 1086, there's a nice chart that kind of looks like this. And again, we have this copied in the English handbook that you can download from pagesuccess.net. And then that'll give you a visual that you can look at that may help with some cartoon characters. But let's look again at just a quick review and then talk about this active-passive. All right, verbs are the key in any sentence. There's two types of verbs, action and linking verbs. You remember the linking verbs are the being verbs. Of course, action means it's doing something. Then there's two functions, and we have another video about that, the transitive versus intransitive. We say those are the functions of the verb. So we have two types, we have two functions, and now we have two voices. And the two voices are active and passive. Now, active is where the subject does the action, and that honestly is what happens the most often, okay? So most sentences that you'll see, most sentences that you write are written with that voice, the active voice. But passive voice, that can be used, often it's used when we don't know who the subject is, who's doing it, and we just know that something happened. The car was hit, okay? So you can go outside and you see, oh man, somebody hit the car. Okay, now the way I just worded that, I said somebody hit the car, that's active. But if I just said the car was hit, I turned it into passive voice, okay? The lunch was eaten. Was eaten says that something happened, but the lunch wasn't the thing doing it. We don't know who ate the lunch, all right? It's gone. The lunch was eaten. There's something important about the passive voice. Whenever you'll see it, there will always, 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 again, this is nice when we can find an always rule in English. There's always a being verb, and it's always connected with the past tense of a verb. And so the other important thing is that the subject is not doing the action of that verb. We say receiving the action. The action is acting on the subject, like when I said the lunch was eaten, okay? The lunch is not the thing doing something. Somebody ate the lunch, and so the lunch was being acted on by probably some teen boys, okay? But, well, it may not say, or the sentence may have a prepositional phrase by, and that will then be who is doing the action. The big lunch was eaten by the boys' basketball team. All right? So now we know who ate the lunch, but still the subject of the sentence is the lunch. That was at the beginning. Was eaten is the past tense, eaten, with the was helping verb. So that's what makes it passive tense, and then we have on the end there that it was by the basketball team, okay? Sometimes, somebody told me this years ago, and it kind of stuck with me as being a funny way of knowing if a sentence is passive. If you could add if it doesn't say who it is and you could say by zombies, then it probably is past tense. The lunch was eaten by zombies. So if you could just add a phrase like that at the end, and that would say who did it. The car was hit by zombies. Then that's passive tense. All right, and let's look at some sentences here and see if we can figure out if it would be active or passive. Our church invited many guests. So here's the verb. The inviting is being done by our church. Who are they inviting? Many guests. So this would be the active verb, action verb, and it is an active, okay, rather than passive voice. Now, if I took the same idea and just turned it around and said many guests were invited, you see how we have a being verb connected with a past tense verb, so they're going together. That's a clue. The inviting, we don't know. This sentence doesn't say who did the inviting. We could add that funny phrase by zombies, okay? Or we could, if we wanted to, say invited by our church or by church members or whatever. It doesn't say who did the inviting. but the guests were the ones who were invited. So we would say that that is the passive voice. All right, a message was preached. Was preached. Again, does it say who preached the message? No. We could say by an evangelist, or we could say by our pastor, or we could say by a zombie. But it's still what we don't know who preached it. So was preached meets the conditions there. The message is receiving the action. Somebody preached the message, and we have the combination of verbs there. A special was sung. Special song was sung. All right. So I'm going to label this here. This is passive. This one's also going to be passive. And the reason is we have was sung. Doesn't say who. Maybe it was the choir. Maybe it was the youth group. Maybe it was a soloist. All we know is that the song was sung by somebody. All right? Let's look at the last one. A meal was served. There we have it again. Was served. A being verb connected with the past tense. The one doing the serving doesn't say. Maybe it was by the ladies of the church. Maybe it was by a catering company. But the meal was served, and so that would be passive. Now notice the subject still remains. This is still the subject at the beginning. Meal, song, message, guests, that's the subject, and then the verb. But the verb here has, in these sentences, a different voice. Okay? So hopefully that helps keeping track. We have two different types of verbs, two different functions for verbs, and we have two different voices, active and passive.